my life didn't start out easy. I was handicapped by addicted parents and then into the foster system until I aged out. With being at rock bottom before I could control any aspect of my surroundings, it made it understandable that I wouldn't turn into a productive member of society, only to continue with the cycle I'd been burdened with. For a very long time, I assumed my choice of friends, couch hopping, and addictions could be blamed on everything but myself. When I was 19, I already moved around to a great deal of different couches and on the verge of being homeless. I'd also gotten into some pretty heavy drugs for about 6 months at that point. The place I found myself staying at was a party house. The entire place trashed and not fit for humans to live inside. Yet so many of us passed out after taking our vice of choice to wake up and do the same thing. I guess that wasn't really living. A new girl showed up one night. I've never seen her before, and I thought she looked too, well, shiny to be around us. She almost had a light coming off of her. I didn't talk with her, and I didn't know who she came with. I quickly drowned in my own vices and blacked out for most of the night. I woke up to see her on the couch, face far too pale. I got up and turned her over on reflex. I suddenly felt very sober when I saw fluid coming from her mouth. I didn't think it was possible for someone like me to act in the proper way in such a dire situation. But somehow, we got her help at the right time. She needed her stomach pumped, but she lived. I never learned what her full name was. After the ambulance left with her, it all hit me at once. Sure, I grew up in terrible conditions, but she clearly didn't. She nearly died by going down the same path. She made the same choice I did. But she never should have been there long enough to make that choice. We all knew better. I felt as if I nearly killed her along with the person she bought the booze and drugs off of that night. We all had choices. At first, things may have started out terrible, but I made the choice not to try and improve my life. I'd gotten to this point because of my own. I couldn't keep blaming everything else on things I couldn't control. After that night, I got away from that group of people and did everything possible to become a better person. I never wanted to almost be the reason why someone died, or keep pitting my problems on anything else. Sure, crap happens, but you can always do something to improve, even in the slightest. The first year was rough, really rough. I nearly died from withdrawals, or at least it felt like it. I worked hard not to fall for the same vices, feeling the need down to my bones. An ache always there, wanting and needing the poison I refused to give my body. I'd hoped this feeling wouldn't always be with me. Some days I might not even notice it, and others I almost couldn't get out of bed due to it. For over 5 years I stayed clean. No drinking, only cigarettes to calm my nerves. Even when weed became legal, I didn't touch it. My life looked great for how I started out. Then, the world came around and pulled the rug from under me. I lost my job for no fault of my own. The worldwide sickness really did a number on my company, and they needed to cut back on employees. I needed a job and went so far to take a few fast food shifts to keep my apartment. With the work hours not coming in and bills piling up, I sunk down to a bad mindset. That feeling of wanting something to take the edge off nearly overtaking everything else. I was at my fast food job about to clock out for the night. Everything cleaned up, and I had another coworker with me. He'd gone out to take the trash 10 minutes ago. The dumpster just 5 steps outside the door, and I got worried a bag ripped and he needed help cleaning it up. I opened the back door, smelling the reason why my teenage coworkers was taking his damn time. I went around the dumpster to find him and 2 other people huddled away from the cameras. The cameras weren't pointed at the door, only at the dumpster to prove the trash had got taken out, and no homeless men got trapped inside overnight. The company didn't care to see if anyone went back inside, so that's how he got away with smoking. At this angle, the camera didn't see them if they crouched down. "Dude, couldn't you do this after our shift?" I said, feeling pretty annoyed he was getting high out back and not helping me with the end of shift cleaning. "Holy shit, Noah. I thought you died or something," one of the older guys said between coughs. I looked at him long and hard, the lines on his face making him look 10 years older than he should. His teeth half missing and his fingers stained from smoking. He was one of the guys I hung around with and the other one with him. He was my dealer back in the day. I got acid reflux just looking at these two. Yeah, I was working a crappy fast food place, but I could have ended up missing most of my teeth and huddling in the back of a dumpster getting high at 1 a.m. Clinton, my old drug dealer, laughed at me seeing me after all these years. His laugh turned into a long, loud cough that didn't sound good. "You two look like you died 10 years ago. Come on." I grabbed my coworker by the arm and lifted him up. He protested, but let himself get dragged inside. I pushed him in and closed the door so I could face the two from my past. I hated the smell of them mixing with the rotten food in the dumpster. Dylan stood up, careful to be out of the way of the cameras as if he knew where they were. Hell, I bet these two provided for half the people working here. I crossed my arms, trying to look tougher than I was. They were pretty thin and worn down from continuing on with the life I abandoned, but I knew they could kick my ass if it came to it. "You got a girlfriend these days?" Dylan asked, shuffling over. The smell of him made me want to puke, but that ache came back. This still lit joint in his hand reminded my body of what I had been refusing for so many years. I shook my head, wanting to get myself back on track. These two needed to piss off and never come back. I didn't want my coworkers hanging around them. They always led people down the wrong path by promising such little things to start with. "You two?" I started and got cut off. They both got close and I was forced against the door. I refused to let the fear of them show in my face. For a second, I thought they might get violent. But for what reason? I didn't think I left owing them money, and stealing my coworker away didn't matter. If they were going to do a deal, it would have been finished 10 minutes ago. "If you need money, we have the shack going again. You should bring a girlfriend over. We pay pretty good," Dylan said, his voice low. Clinton looked around nervous. He kept scratching at his arms and clearly wanted to leave. A cold wave came over my entire body. I heard about the shack, but never confirmed if what went on in there really happened. If even half of the terrible stories were true, I needed to bring the full force of the law down on whoever was running it, and fast. I've only went to the shack once to deliver a package but didn't go inside. I just handed off what was needed and left. I only got asked because I was trustworthy enough to know the location. After leaving that life behind, I forgot all about it until Dylan brought up all those memories. I shook my head, but he kept talking. "Just think about it. We can pay you and other stuff too. I can tell you need it," the dealer said, and his friend laughed a little bit too loudly. My hands were trembling. I gripped my arms tighter, trying to hide that fact. I hated what he said held a little truth. I wanted to forget about my bills and stress for just one night, or at least a few hours. At the end of hard shifts, I found myself wondering if just one night would really hurt me in the long run. Get screwed. I turned on my heel, opened the door, and hit Dylan in the face with it. I slammed the door before he could attack me for hitting him. They came around to the front to bang on the glass once and left. They knew there were cameras at the front and in the parking lot because we'd had people smash the windows before. My coworker asked me what that was about, but I went into a lecture about him hanging around those guys. I may have told some tall tales to scare him enough to never want to see them again. Each story was based in truth, so I didn't feel bad about sorta lying. I got him safely home because I didn't trust him getting on the bus properly. Once he was inside his place, I drove off. Just making a long loop of the city, the thoughts of the night eating away at me. I didn't know if Dylan was messing with me, mentioning the shack. I debated on calling the cops to check it out. But if they found nothing, that would tip off Dylan and Clinton, plus anyone else running it. They would know who called, and that risked my life. I didn't want what I heard about to keep going on, but I also didn't want to be kidnapped and killed for reporting it. That made me feel selfish. I had to do something. I decided on going to the shack myself and checking it out. If I gathered some evidence that led to the right people being arrested, it might work out. It also might get me killed for spying on them and secretly filming what went on around the shack. And who knows? Maybe Dylan was just messing with me and the old rotten place fell down years ago. I didn't work the next day and got ready for my new mission. I put on some boots for hiking, a water bottle and my cell phone, and an external battery for it. After all these years, I still remember the location in the middle of the woods, only after going to it once. That was my one useless talent. I could remember how to get anywhere, even in the dark, after going there only a single time. That talent didn't really come in handy very often, but now it did. I arrived to the woods in the middle of the day. It didn't look like it, though. Gray clouds hung overhead and the trees were bare. It wasn't overly cold for the season, but I still zipped up my jacket. I parked my car a block away and started to walk down the dirt road that led into the woods. I quickly went off the path to the tree marked with red spray paint, faded with age. It wasn't a very long walk from the road to the small rundown shack in the middle of the woods. I don't even know why it was ever built out there. Maybe a hunter did it for when he spent time in the woods and people just took it over. Every step caused dead leaves or twigs to crunch under my feet. A sharp breeze blew, making me stop for a second and get the dirt from my eyes once the wind picked up. When I opened my eyes again, I was met by a baseball bat in mid-swing, a second away from impacting my head. I could only stand there and take the hit, unable to move out of the way in time. The hit knocked me over, but not out. The other two swings of the bat took care of that. I'd been so stupid. A pair of guys that had burned out their brain cells for most of their life outsmarted me. I couldn't forgive myself for falling for such an obvious trap. When my eyes opened, being awake came with a throbbing headache. I jumped, my body tied down to a chair so I didn't get very far. I glanced around, trying to figure out how bad of a situation I landed myself in. I was inside the shack. That much was clear. The floor made of packed down dirt and faint light showing through the cracks in the wooden boards for walls. The single window dirty and covered in spiderwebs. Clinton waited for me to wake up. He smiled and called out for Dylan, who apparently took a few steps outside to use the washroom because I took so long to wake back up. A red light made me focus on a camera mounted in a small space and hidden behind Clinton for a second. Good, you woke up. I thought we need to dump some water on you or something, Dylan said when he came back inside. If they hadn't put duct tape over my mouth, I would have told him off. He ordered Clinton to get the camera set up outside, saying that the shack was too small for what they needed to do. Countless, horrible mental images ran through my head of what these two had planned. They dragged me in the chair outside, the sun starting to set to show how long I'd been out for. A camera on a tripod sitting outside hooked up to a laptop. Why would these two record this? Wouldn't that bite them in the ass? They made sure I was in frame, and from the look of things, the camera was recording the entire time. My stomach sank when I assumed right then that this was being live-streamed. Dylan saw my expression and smiled. He loved being in a position of power over someone who saw him worth less than a cockroach. Yeah, we're live streaming this. We get paid pretty good for these shows. But lately, we've run through most of our connections to use, so thank God we came across you. We always knew you thought you were too good for us. We had a bet if you called the cops or came by on your own. The outcome would have been the same. We would put on a show, but if it was the cops, we would need to find a new place to hold the shows. What was he, a Saturday cartoon villain? Why bother telling me all of this? I already felt more terrified than I ever had in my life. And telling me details of what was going to happen wouldn't add to that. I soon realized the reason why he went on talking for so long as he did. Neither him or Clinton were going to be the ones to put on the show. They were just the ones to lure others in and to run the camera. No, the main star still in the woods. When it came into view, I knew my previous statement had been false. I could feel even more fear. My body shook and I screamed through the duct tape. Standing between two trees came a massive creature, one that should be impossible to get to this size. I've never seen one in person, but knew right away what I looked at. A wild boar. A long line of bristled fur ran along its back. Two massive and stained tusks came from the side of its mouth. The thing came closer, and I swear Dylan's head didn't reach the boar's shoulders. How the hell did this damn thing get so big? I stared directly into the boar's eyes, seeing how unnatural they looked. Another breeze came by, and it blew away leaves from the clearing we all stood in. The dirt once hidden under the leaves a darker red color that twisted my stomach. I had no trouble figuring out what the next few minutes held. The boar getting ever closer, the rancid breath overpowering my senses. For a brief second, the eyes of the creature glowed a bright white. Then the thing came down on me with all of its weight. I felt the teeth rip into me down to my bones. I screamed a muffled sound, my entire mind only feeling pain. I wasn't even aware the chair broke apart and my bindings came undone. If I was being eaten alive, then what was the point of knowing that? Those teeth weren't sharp and I wish they were. They ground against my bones, eating and pulling something out of them. And then pulled at something from so deep within myself. The pain went beyond my physical body and into a part I never knew was there until those teeth found it. Piece by piece it tore out from me. I didn't think anyone should feel this much pain and still be alive. I begged for death only to have my mind finally shut down. After everything I fully expected to be dead, or in pieces in front of the shack barely alive, I opened my eyes to sounds of people shouting. Sitting up, my body oddly was whole. My chest felt light though, too light. I was missing something I didn't have a name for. I screamed when I saw the boar nearby. The camera and laptop crushed under massive hooves. A choking scent came over us and I found the source. Instead of tearing me apart, the boar had made a messy meal of Dylan and Clinton. I got sick and heard the shouting again. In the distance, I noticed flashlights in the dark trees. "They shall take your freedom. Come along with me," a voice spoke, and it took me a few seconds to figure out it came from the boar. The words were deep and they rolled over the dead leaves. The voice much like what I assumed a king might have. I looked again at the humans making their way over and knew right away they were cops. If they saw me standing in the middle of, well, Dylan and Clinton, questions I didn't have the answers for were bound to come up. That boar caused me so much pain and I hesitated going over to it. The thing nearly left me behind. With some issues, I climbed up on the wide back and we were off running through the trees far away from the bloody scene. The powerful beast ran like the wind. I kept a tight grip on the fur, my body feeling so light, the fast pace making it almost impossible to stay on for too long. We finally stopped, the boar tossing me off. I landed painfully at the base of a tree, but at least I knew I was still alive. I rubbed my back. What the hell just? My angry word was cut off, seeing a new sight in front of me. A man stood in front of me instead of the boar from a few seconds ago. I looked around for the monster, wondering how the hell it left so fast. I then focused on the person who had replaced it, my mind working slowly. He was tall and very large, but large in a way professional weightlifters are. He wasn't wearing a shirt, so it made it easy to see his big arms that were almost as thick as a tree. He thankfully wore some sweatpants and, oddly enough, a cloth hanging over his face. Seeing the long, bristled hair going down his back made me put the two pieces together. "Seriously, what the hell?" I asked, feeling exhausted. The man laughed, making the cloth in his face move. He shifted his arms into a stretch, but thankfully went into explaining things soon after a small warm-up. "I am a god. I made a deal with those two that I'll eat the ones they bring me and they can film it for their little side project." Pig god? "Boar," he corrected, but didn't sound angry. We live to eat, and I rarely find things I haven't tasted before. Those two were running out of suitable meals, so I ate them ready to move on. But they did bring me you. What I ate out of your bones was one of my better meals of late, and I do hope to have it again. I backed up against the tree as far as possible. He confirmed he ate something from me, but I didn't know what it was. I paused to self-reflect, trying to see what was different. All my memories seemed intact. All my feelings. Then what was it? I still knew my name and age. And then the answer finally came when I noticed his light. I felt it, and how my hands were only shaken from fear. You ate my addictions, I said, trying to wrap my head around the idea. The god laughed so loudly it shook the bare trees. I winced at the sound, and because he took a step closer. His hands opened wide, and I thought he either wanted to hug me or eat me. The taste of it rotting away your bones and soul, just so sweet. I wished I had more of it. You went without vices for years, making it wear you down and get so rooted into yourself that it would have made you collapse from the inside. I love it. Those two, nothing compared to that taste. But that addiction craving is going to come back. In a year or 2 or 10. You did well holding it back. And you'll do well when it returns. I'll leave you be for now, but I shall check in on you to see if you have created a meal for me in the future, he said, and his words gave me chills. I shook my head, but he refused my answer. With a large hand on my shoulder, he started to guide me along, and I figured the way out of the woods. I looked up at him, trying to think of a way to avoid the pain I felt a second time. Was it worth going through all of that so I didn't have my cravings for a few years? The police. Do not worry about that. They shall think an escaped feral pig or two ate the ones we left behind. They'll find some and shoot them, he said without a care in the world. But they didn't eat them. Are you going to let 2 pigs take the fall for your crime? I am a god. They live to eat and to be eaten, and to serve whenever I ask. He really sounded as if he didn't care, sacrificing 2 lives just to leave this whole thing all neatly wrapped up. I looked up over the cloth of his face, realizing I may never fully understand his reasoning or agree with it. What's with the cloth? He stopped, not expecting the question. He thought about it for a minute and shrugged his large shoulders. I have not decided on a face yet. I should the next time we meet. I hated the fact that I needed to see this creature again. He was a god, and I had no power to stop him from coming by again to eat away something that is going to rot me from the inside in the future. Do you have a name? Or is it just Boar God? I asked him. I expected him to think about this for longer than the answer about his face. He came up with a name rather quick, which surprised me a little. Brawn shall be fine. He put his hands on his hips, almost expecting me to praise him for picking out a name so quickly. I didn't acknowledge it, and he started walking away again. I started to hear sounds from the road, making it clear how close we were from reaching society. I stopped to look up at Braun, about to ask him if he was going to keep following me or not, or if I was free to go. I think I'm going to look around where you humans live for now. I may find a meal just as good as the one you gave me tonight. I'm going to return to you in 5 years or 10, no matter the time frame. I'm going to eat the rot from your bones. You forced that desire down, and I expected you'd be able to do it again. You did a good job these 5 years, little human. I will eat out your desire, your addiction, before it comes back to consume you. The god spoke. I wasn't expecting those words to really mean anything. The first part I got nervous over, but I realized I didn't have a single person give me any praise for staying clean for as long as I did. I went to meetings and heard empty words from the people there, but no one really meant it. They just said it, so I repeated the same thing back to them. I'd fought for years by myself, and never thought much of it because I assumed other people dealt with much worse. I didn't want to go through the same pain of having that part of me ripped out again. I knew if I gave in to avoid Braun coming around, though, I would lose everything I tried so hard to achieve. I looked back on my current life, suddenly not feeling as much dread and stress as before. I still had my apartment and a job. I wasn't homeless yet, and had options compared to before. If I got through my childhood, I could handle everything right now. I guess I'll see you in about 5 to 10 years. Thanks for saving my life, and, well, taking care of my other problem, I told him, a smile on my face, even with my head hurting as much as it did. You really should be more careful and not let drug dealers outsmart you like this. But I do not believe you solved the rot within yourself. It'll come back. You kept it down all on your own, and you need to do it again. I only gave you a small break. For a big, scary boar god, Braun sounded kinda nice. I still didn't want to hang out with him, though. The cloth covering his face and the unknown behind it really creeped me out. I started walking again, leaving the tall man behind. I glanced over my shoulder a few times, expecting him to follow, but Braun disappeared after the second glance. I knew it wasn't the last time I would see him. I came out on a road near where I parked my car, unsure if that was by chance or not. My head throbbed, and it was a miracle I didn't get any lasting damage from the baseball bat to the face. I went into work the next day, as if everything was normal, and got a few questions about my bruised forehead. I lied, saying I fell down my apartment steps. The co-worker who I dragged away from Dylan and Clinton started looking at me strangely. After those two didn't show up again, he assumed I got into a fight with them and wanted to scare them away from this place. I got a little respect for that. Yeah, most of them bought from those two, but wouldn't have if they knew what kind of people they were. It all came out after that feral pig story. For a week, no one at work talked about anything else between our duties. Slowly, things started to even out. I got regular hours, bills paid, and plans made. After a few months, a familiar ache started to creep back into my core. I knew I just needed to put up with it. I could do this. That rot wasn't going to drag me down after I put so much into the life I wanted. It's not much. I'm never going to change the world or cure cancer. But I'm happy with what I've worked towards.